Welcome back to the Caregiver Minute, where every weekday family and professional caregivers gather to refine their skills, gain inspiration, and prepare to serve. Yesterday, we started talking about delirium and the things that cause it, and I pointed out that the word delirium itself is an acronym to remind us of the various root causes. D reminds us of dehydration, E reminds us of endocrine problems and electrolyte imbalances. So today we're going to tackle the L and the I that come next. L reminds us that lack of oxygen is a big problem in delirium. Lack of oxygen can occur for many different reasons. One of them that's frequently undiagnosed is sleep apnea. If someone's airway is closing at night, either because they're really overweight or because they have a really small mouth compared to the size of their tongue, or if they're not getting enough oxygen because their brain doesn't tell them to breathe as frequently as it should, a problem called central sleep apnea, then this person might be dealing with chronic lack of oxygen for 8 hours of their life every day. That's going to have an effect on brain functioning. There are many other things that can cause a lack of oxygen. Someone might have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD. They're going to be chronically deprived of oxygen, and that can cause delirium. If someone is on oxygen treatments and they get really confused, we need to check their oxygen concentrator, because it's pretty common that people will lose track of the fact that they've run out of oxygen. And all of a sudden, this person's cognitive functioning might be tanking because there's no oxygen in their tank. That's an easy fix. It's an embarrassing situation in a lot of cases. People recognize, oh my gosh, of course you need your oxygen. If someone is a smoker, or if they have asthma, or if they have congestive heart failure, they likely have a chronic lack of oxygen that might be contributing to their cognitive problems. If someone's having a stroke, that can cut off oxygen getting to the brain, and that could be responsible for their delirium symptoms. If they're having a heart attack, they're not circulating blood enough, and so they're not carrying enough oxygen to the brain, and you see symptoms of that in terms of rapid loss of cognitive functioning. What about the first I in our acronym delirium? Well, that reminds us that injury and intoxication need to be ruled out. What if the person we're serving who's suddenly confused fell and we didn't see it, and now they've got an inflammatory response going in their brain, and outwardly we see the symptoms of cognitive decline? Maybe we need to look for bruising or other evidence that a person had a fall that was not witnessed. Maybe we saw them fall, and now it's 2 or 3 or more days later, and their cognitive functioning is really dropping. It was probably the inflammation brought on by the fall, and we can be thoughtful about how we deal with that. Intoxication doesn't affect everybody because a lot of people are living in controlled circumstances where they don't have access to alcohol or drugs. But sometimes people go out on field trips and they might get access to something. And other times we're serving people who are living in the home, and they might have plenty of access to alcohol or even illicit drugs. Use of alcohol and drugs can certainly cause symptoms of delirium. The R in our acronym reminds us that retention can be a real issue for people, specifically urinary retention. Many men, as they get older, have an enlarged prostate, and it's harder for them to empty their bladder. Many women may have a prolapsed bladder that kind of folds over on itself. A lot of men and women use medications that have an anticholinergic side effect, and they make it a lot harder for people to properly empty their bladders. We have to consider those things when we're taking into account the reason that someone might be experiencing delirium. I hope these insights are making sense and adding to the tools that you have in your toolbox to try to figure out why someone might be presenting with symptoms of delirium. And I hope you'll come back for our next episode when we dive into the last few letters of the acronym delirium so we understand as many things as possible about what might be triggering those symptoms. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again for our next episode.